You'll notice there aren't any other people involved here. There really aren't. You manage to shut out everybody else you know from your consciousness. You love your family members, you love your friends, but from the moment you wake up till the moment you fall asleep, all of your energy goes to the addict and your addiction to the addict. The first Al-Anon meeting I attended was helpful. I mostly just observed those around me, like I did when I was a child at church, episode 1. I noticed the behavior of the people at the meeting. I soaked up every nuance of their body language and heard every word they spoke and watched their faces. People say that, actors say that when they meet Meryl Streep, she is a bit unnerving because she stares at them so keenly, and nobody is comfortable when they're being stared down. I have a feeling I do that too. And not because I equate with that legendary actress, but because I think I get that process of creative observation. It's been part of my life as far back as I can recall a memory. So I watched all the people at the meeting, but I was detached and self-conscious. I remember feeling, most notably, that I stuck out like a sore thumb because I was clean and made up and healthy and alert, and I couldn't help noticing, especially among the women, how drawn and exhausted their faces looked. The years of the addictive process taking its toll on their physical appearance. And I also remember noting at the particular meetings in my region, I live in a blue-collar town that was more blue-collar back in the 90s than it is today, that I, while not even considering myself a white-collar professional, I still didn't feel part of the biker bar culture either. But that's pretty much lifelong for me. I've never really felt part of any group. So, but I remember feeling that way at my first Al-Anon meeting. I was observing and a little uncomfortable, thinking that I might be making the other members there uncomfortable by being in the room with them. Not so these last couple years. The first time I attended an Al-Anon meeting in recent years, I was the basket case. I had just endured the night before an episode of public display of intoxication, which was enormous in its scope. I'm a public performer, and I was on the stage when it happened. The episode took place among about 1,000 people, and anyone within proximity could see it. And the next morning, I was sitting at the 11 o'clock in the room, crying, blathering and blubbering my story. But it didn't end there, did it? Most importantly, I think I went back the next week and maybe the week after that, but eventually I stopped going to the meetings again. Because, you know, like most addicts, the ones who are determined to quit will keep going to meetings and get a sponsor. But I wasn't determined to quit. I wasn't going to leave him. And, you know, the longer I stayed at a meeting and the more meetings I attended, the more uncomfortable I became in my relationship with myself. And the harder it was to come to terms with my addiction to him. So I wrote an essay instead about Al-Anon. I don't remember what it's called. I don't remember the title, but it's in my blog. My blog, by the way, is littlebareFeetblog.com. Bear is spelled B-A-R-E, like no shoes. littlebarefeetblog.com at WordPress. There are 630 almost essays and poems there, produced by me over the past 5 years. Unpublished. Well, one of them was published in our local paper many years ago, called The Empty Seat. But I stopped going to the meetings and wrote about them instead. And this is what I said. I decided that Al-Anon was created for relatives and friends of addicts because they can't leave. And they need a place to go because they can't leave the relationship, so they go to the meeting. And when they leave the meeting, they commit the only act of leave-taking that they are capable of committing. And there's always one person who stays afterwards to talk to the newest member. And that person is usually the member who's had the roughest week at home. Addiction and grief. A lot of my reasoning for staying has become about grief and avoiding grief. Because when any relationship ends, there's always a grieving process, and it's very much like death. If you have lost anyone really close to you, and at my age, most of my generation has lost at least one parent, and possibly two. Both of mine are gone, and I've been very close to their process of death. I've been either in the room or about to be in the room. Among my siblings, I'm the one who stayed home, meaning I stayed here in town until the death of both my parents. I made my life here. So we avoid the grieving process with all our might the older we get, I think. And we remain in relationships with addicts because we've become addicted to them. They don't know we're addicted to them. They just know we're under their skin and that they don't find our company appealing anymore. We haven't been riding along. We haven't been participating in their addiction, which is more ideal for them. They really seek someone who will share their substance. And when we don't share the substance, as time passes, we become more and more repugnant as we increase our addiction to them. Anybody will tell you if you're addicted to anything, sugar, you dream about it, you think about it, and you experience a short-term elation when you allow yourself to consume it, followed by regret and disgust when you've had too much. I went to Wegmans last night, elated, when I found out by searching online that they sold macarons. Our local co-op makes them too. They're absolutely irresistible to a sugar addict. And last night I discovered, to my ecstatic joy that not only were the macarons at Wegmans available, but they were in a special display for gluten-free customers, of which I am one. So, yay! They were catering to my needs and my addiction at the same time. I was out of my head. I bought a package of macarons and I bought another package of cookies. Totally unnecessary, but an addict buys more than they need. So this morning I'm, on the downside of, having given in to that. Look at my skin. Yay. Ugh. How yellow can you get? My tongue is coated. We become repugnant to the addict, to the active addict, to the addict who has no interest in quitting or recovering. And that's the hardest kind of addiction, when attempts to stop are just palliative or placating or short-term. Every time he indulges, I come home and indulge my sugar addiction. But I've become so repugnant that I am now rejectable. It has really come down to choosing the substance or choosing me. And the substance is liberating temporarily, and I am the load. I'm the burden. I am the undesirable. The substance is desirable, friendly, non-judgmental, and available. I am rejectable. I am unwanted. So when you find yourself addicted to an addict and you are an addict, you are in your active addiction process. The double whammy is you process being rejected, you process your active addiction, and now you have to process grief, which is all too familiar. And you don't want to go there. You don't want to have to endure episodic bouts of sobbing, inability to interact socially for longer than 12 minutes, putting on a good front, smiling, and then aching. The ache inside is unbearable. And the hole in your heart, it isn't even a hole in your heart anymore. I remember feeling this morning when I woke that there's a hole where my heart used to be. I gave my whole heart to this person. I gave every ounce of my energy to this relationship for the past 2.5 years. And I am not a young woman. Fool that I am. Is this the sob story? No, these episodes of these videos that I'm making are some attempt to provide a resource to anybody who happens by. They're also therapeutic for me, no surprise there. And I hope they're therapeutic to somebody, if just 1 or 2 people out of the potential vastness of the internet audience. We bloom where we're planted. I'm not the most beautiful flower in the garden, and I'm tired. But hopefully you